The world trembled. Mount Olympus, home of the gods, stood silent and empty, its golden halls abandoned. The skies, once bright with divine radiance, churned with black thunderheads, their bellies swollen with the promise of annihilation. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath, the seas recoiling from the shores, the forests bending away from the coming storm. And then he emerged. Typhon, the father of all monsters, rose from the depths of Tartarus, his very presence splitting the earth asunder. His form was a nightmare, given flesh 100 serpentine heads, each crowned with obsidian horns, their fangs dripping venom that burned through stone. His legs were coiled vipers, his arms thicker than ancient oaks, his wings blotting out the sun as they stretched across the horizon. His voice was the roar of 1,000 earthquakes, the scream of dying stars, the hunger of the void itself. The gods had fled, all but one. Zeus stood alone at the peak of the world, his lightning coursing through his veins like liquid fire. His aegis, the divine shield forged in the heart of creation, shimmered with barely restrained power. His thunderbolt, crackling in his fist, was the last spark of order in a world about to be unmade. He did not wait for Typhon to reach him. With a thunderclap that shattered mountains, Zeus hurled himself into the sky, his bolt carving a blazing arc through the darkness. The first strike hit true a searing lance of pure destruction that sheared through 3 of Typhon's heads in an explosion of black blood and ichor. The monster howled, his remaining heads whipping toward the sky, venomous eyes locking onto the king of the gods. What followed was not a duel, but a cataclysm. Typhon's claws raked across the heavens, tearing rents in the fabric of reality itself. Where they passed, storms of blood and fire erupted, swallowing entire cities in their wake. Zeus answered with storm and thunder, his lightning reducing mountain ranges to glass, his fury shaking the pillars of the earth. The two titans clashed in mid-air, their collision sending shockwaves that flattened forests and boiled seas. Typhon's fangs sank into Zeus's shoulder, venom burning through divine flesh like acid. The god roared, driving his thunderbolt into the monster's chest, the blast ripping open a crater where a kingdom once stood. Blood rained from the sky. Typhon's severed heads regrew even as Zeus tore them away, each new one more grotesque than the last. The god's own wounds wept golden ichor, his strength waning with every passing moment. The earth cracked beneath them, rivers of molten rock surging upward, as if the planet itself was bleeding. At last, Typhon seized Zeus in his monstrous grip, dragging him down, into the depths of the world. The god's lightning flickered, his struggles growing weaker as the weight of the abyss pressed upon him. The monster laughed, a sound like continents breaking apart. As he pinned Zeus beneath him, his maw opening wide for the killing bite, Zeus's fingers found the hilt of a forgotten blade, a sliver of primordial darkness. It's the only weapon that could slay an immortal. With the last of his strength, he drove it into Typhon's heart. The scream that followed was the sound of the universe tearing at its seams. When the dust settled, the world was forever changed. Typhon's corpse lay buried beneath Mount Etna, his blood fueling its eternal fires. Zeus, broken but victorious, dragged himself back to Olympus, his wounds never fully healing. But the scars of their battle remained. The seas were forever restless. The earth still trembled in memory of the monster's rage. And in the darkest nights, when the storms raged fiercest, mortals whispered that Typhon's roar could still be heard, not gone, merely sleeping. For 3 generations, no rain fell on Greece. The heavens themselves bore the marks of the conflict. Great rifts in the firmament where Typhon's claws had torn at the fabric of the sky. At night, these scars pulsed with an eerie light, casting the land below in unnatural hues. The crops withered, the rivers ran dry. The people offered sacrifices to gods who no longer answered. Zeus sat upon his fractured throne, his once radiant form now dimmed. The wound in his shoulder never closed, weeping golden ichor that pooled at his feet. The other gods returned cautiously, their eyes averted from their king's shame. Only Hera dared approach, her hands trembling as she tried to staunch the flow. "It will not heal," Zeus murmured, his voice like distant thunder. From the spilled blood of the battle, new horrors emerged. In the caves of Arcadia, creatures with too many eyes and jagged limbs stirred. The seas birthed monstrosities with Typhon's likeness serpentine abominations that dragged ships screaming into the depths. Worst of all were the whispers that spread through the dreams of mortals, promises of power from voices that should have been silenced. Athena found the first cult in a Thessalian village. The villagers had dug too deep, uncovering blackened bones that still pulsed with heat. They built an altar around their discovery, offering livestock, then children, then their very souls. When the Olympians arrived, the villagers' eyes were gone, replaced by smoldering pits that saw into realms beyond mortal comprehension. Mount Etna's eruptions grew more violent with each passing year. Hephaestus reported terrible sounds from his forges beneath the mountain. Not the rumble of magma, but something rhythmic, something purposeful. The earth shook with each beat, as if something massive was stirring in its sleep. One night, the god of fire emerged from the depths, his beard singed away, his armor melted to his flesh. He dreams, Hephaestus gasped before collapsing into a fevered trance. The other gods looked to Zeus, but the king's face was unreadable. Zeus no longer slept. He stood at the edge of Olympus, staring down at the world below. His thunderbolt, once bright as the sun, now flickered weakly in his hand. The wound in his shoulder ached with every movement, a constant reminder that the war was not truly over. The darkest hours, when even the stars seemed to hold their breath. Zeus would press his hand to the earth and feel it, the slow, steady pulse of Typhon's heart beneath the mountain, waiting, growing stronger. And the king of the gods knew one day the storm would break again. The mortals tell the story differently, of course. In their versions, the victory was clean, the monster was slain. The gods returned to their revels. But in the quiet places in the deep caves where no torchlight reaches, in the abyssal trenches where no sunlight penetrates, the earth remembers. And it whispers a warning. No war between gods and monsters ever truly ends. It only waits for the next age.